Hello, welcome to Tea with the Druid 138. This is Philip Carr-Gomm, and Tea with the Druid is brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And welcome if you're watching this live now, and welcome if you're watching a recording later. It's a very, very hot day today, and I'm checking that it's all working. And Jan from Poland is the first to arrive, and then Bethany from the south coast in Dorset, and then everybody's piling in. This is great. Montana, the Chilterns, North Germany, St. Petersburg. Hello, Dennis, and Ben in St. Lucia, and Skegness, Blackpool, Ohio. Oh, this is wonderful. Lincolnshire, Shropshire. Fabulous. That's great. Lovely to see you. Well, how are you feeling? I don't know about you, but it's so hot here. It's unbelievably hot. Somebody said, I just saw a note going past there that it's 107 degrees. God, yes, it feels like that here. So when you inquire about joining the order, or you join the order and you get the introductory package, we send you this booklet called Wild Wisdom. And there's a poem in there that I just feel moved to read to you. I'm sitting here thinking, what mood am I in? And this is the mood I'm in. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. I just love that poem. And one of the reasons why it echoes for me, I think, how I'm feeling now is that line where it says, tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. And of course, now, as so often happens, world events are so sad. The business in Beirut, all these people being killed in this explosion, all the rest of it. You look around at the state of the world, and despair is what I feel, and I guess most people feel, of course. And it's good to recognize that, and it's good to share it. When it says, tell me about despair, yours, the kind of despair you're experiencing, and I will tell you mine. And so you share. So there's this idea of sharing in there. And at the same time, there's this line that goes afterwards, which is why I think it's so interesting. It says, meanwhile, the world goes on. And when I close my eyes and I tune in to what's happening in the world, that comes too. I can feel the sadness. And then there's, meanwhile, the world goes on as it has always gone on. As tragedy after tragedy occurs around the world goes on. And that's not to deny the sadness, but to be open to the beauty too. The sun and the clear pebbles of the rain moving across the landscape. And that's how I feel too. I actually feel calm and settled, and loving the world, the natural world. And then that wonderful line, whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination. Over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Very interesting choice of words. Mary Oliver, the poet, doesn't say in the family of beings or of animals or people, but of things, which means that family includes the stones and the stars and the trees and the leaves and the mushrooms and everything. So here we are at this very, very hot time of year in the UK, and It's the time of Lammas, moving from Lunacy to the autumn equinox, and absolutely dead on cue. The fields are golden and full of those hay bales. So this perfect harvest scene, and again that mixture of sadness and at the ending of something, and but also a feeling of harvest. And in thinking about that, here's a strange train of thought that occurred to me that I'd like to share with you, which is that, and to tell me if I'm mad or whether you feel the same way, is that my life is like a meal. I feel as if I'm cooking something. I'm preparing a meal. My whole life is some kind of meal. And as soon as I thought of that, my critical faculties came in. I thought, well, that's a very strange thing to say. How odd. Is that just because you're so into food or something? But I think this is a valid seam for us to follow. So this sense of your life being a meal, which has something about welcoming other people, about sharing a meal together. This is, after all, when life feels really worthwhile, when you're sharing a meal with loved ones. And so it's something about sharing, it's something about enjoyment, something about life, giving life to oneself, sustaining oneself, because you're cooking for yourself as well as for your friends and loved ones. Sustaining life, making it beautiful, making it tasty, making it interesting. You know, that when you worry that your life might be boring or bland, tasteless, you want your life to be juicy and tasty. And sometimes you could put too much spice on and it explodes and it's not a good meal. But so following this line of thought, my immediate thought was I should call this supper with a Druid, not tea with a Druid, but a meal with a Druid. And of course, now there's a feeling that we're all being baked. I see somebody saying it's boiling here in Warwickshire, and it really does feel like we're cooking here. In fact, it's a phrase used in the sort of psychotherapy business of, when you're training or working with somebody, it's are you cooked? Have you sufficiently sort of processed the material within you? I think it's used amongst trainee therapists between each other rather than with clients. I think a client might be surprised, but maybe not, if you asked if they were cooked. And of course we have the colloquialism, you're making a meal out of this. When somebody is, what are they doing? Why do we say that? It's when somebody seems to be being self-indulgent and they're overplaying their hand, they're banging on too much about whatever upset is going on for them or whatever things are going on in their lives. You're making a meal out of this, slow down. But the positive side of it is feasting. There's something about feasting here. And when I realized, I always think that I'm a bit crazy and that my thoughts aren't profound enough. I suppose that's the critic in me. I will take a train of thought, I'll capture it, I'll follow it, get very enthusiastic, and then I'll suddenly doubt. But of course, this train of thought to me is valid because it brings us to the ideas which lead, after all, to the heart of the mysteries, where the God is eaten. We know that particularly in the Christian tradition, of course, where the Mass and the doctrine of transubstantiation says that actually when you take this little bit of bread or wafer and wine, it is actually flesh and blood, which can seem a very odd idea indeed, as if we're being cannibals, eating somebody, or being vampires, drinking somebody's blood. But we don't think that. Usually it uplifts people who are Christians, and even if people aren't Christians, maybe they sometimes partake of feasts. So in other contexts, in Wiccan ceremonies, we have the cakes and the wine and so on. And in Druid ceremonies too, we have feasts. So feasting is a big part of Druidry. And of course, so we think about the feasts, the 8 feasts in the year that go around. You think, yes, okay, I get that, yes. There's, the feast of the solstices and equinoxes, etc. And not in all of them, but in a good deal of them, that something will be consumed, drink or food will be consumed in it. So we're used to thinking of a festival as being a feast time outside of us. But I think the invitation here is to ask what it means if the feast is you. What if you're the meal? What if your life is the festival? Your whole life is a festival. I think this helps me to understand why my mother at 97 still says every so often when I see her, I think I'm making progress, Phil. That's what she says. I think I'm making progress, which I find very endearing. Because I want to say toward, progress about what? But I sort of know what she means. And she's cooking herself. She's making a meal out of her life. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about meals. They're transient. You finish them. They're over. How come we don't get upset when somebody invites us to dinner? Some friends invite us around to a dinner. How come we don't say, oh my God, this is terrible? Because why are you saying that? Because, it's 7 o'clock now. By 10, 11 o'clock, the meal will be finished and we'll be going home. It'll all be over. But we don't say that because we enter into the moment. So here again, the idea of ourselves as the meal, as the feast, as the festival, is about our being in time. As a being in time, I know it's transient. I know the meal I'm cooking, my own life, the progress I'm making is going to be over. I know it's impermanent, but I'm happy to be cooking this meal. I'm happy to be sharing this meal with those that I love. And it brings me life, and hopefully it brings life to other people as well, which is what we do when we communicate with each other. When we share our lives, we bring each other life in this way. What an odd idea. So there. Does this make sense? Have I gone mad? Has the heat got to my brain? And or is this meaning something? Question then comes is, if your life is making the meal, if you are the meal, who's the cook? Who's making it? And in that question we go to the, it's the famous moment in meditation, isn't it, where you go from being at one with your thoughts or connecting with your breathing or whatever it is you're meditating on, and then you go to the position of the observer, or what's called the witness. You shift levels to the level of the soul, if you like, which is eternal, which is beyond time. The chef who will make another meal in another lifetime. I'm just going to quickly scroll up the comments just in case. But who is eating the meal, says Christine. Yes. Well, this is the thing, is that we're all eating each other's meals, aren't we? Which is why I think this is the responsibility of the media, of writers, of what we consume. Is life a series of entrees and ever becoming dishes? Is your mother at the pudding or the savoury stage? Says Penny. That's awareness. Susan says conscious awareness is the cook. Yes. So it's a bit like the Jewish picture, the Leviathan at the end of all days, which is consumed by all people. That's interesting. I don't know about that, Daniel. I must look that up. This and then Fernero said, "Of course you're mad, but then we all are in these upside down times." Exactly. I mean, that's the one thing these crazy times are giving us is the permission, I think, to really be as crazy as you like. Indeed, says Annie, let's make this meal of our life a splendid one, filled with flavor and love. Like a meal, says Rachel, what we put into it will make it tasty or not. Yes. Christopher White says, I think I'm the cheese board. Yes, it's a fun exercise. You can let's ask us this question. Like, if you were a dish, what dish would you be right now? That's a sort of workshop icebreaker that you can use. Are you a cheese souffle or a raspberry flavored croissant? I don't know. Yes. Never trust a skinny cook, says Anurin. Yes. So, and the thing about eating, here's the thing that just immediately sprang to mind. Some of the most amazing meals that I've had in my life have been during a period of time for 14 years. I used to fly to Sofia in Bulgaria every springtime, early spring, sort of February, March time. I think it was that, February, March, April, and the cherry blossom would come out. Sofia is about 2,000 meters up, I think. It's very high up. You've got the mountains, which would be covered with snow, and the cherry blossom would be out. And this was during the communist era, when everybody was really, really poor. And, nobody had any money. But I would go over there and would gather with friends, no mobile phones or anything, but we would just kind of meet up and have the most wonderful meals together, where we would meditate and sing and eat this delicious, and the food was made from the simplest ingredients. I remember they used to have a soup called angel soup, which was made out of butter, potatoes, and lemon juice and salt. That's all it was. But it was just literally divine. It was just incredible. And there was something about the intensity of consciousness and love and kind of amazement that we were all there together, and the sort of pressure of being clandestine, because it was a communist era thing and all sorts of rules and so on. All that made these meals incredibly nourishing at every level, from the physical right through to the spiritual. And in fact, I followed a guru for 7 years who developed this concept called Kharani yoga, the yoga of eating, and we used to eat in silence. So there'd be 500 of us in this ashram in the south of France. His name was Omran Mikhail Ivanov. And we would eat in absolute silence. And the food, and you would get incredibly high with it. And the food would turn into, because you were it was like doing a mindfulness meditation, but on the meal, on the food as it was coming in, and all your awareness would be on the food, and it would turn into kind of the milk of the goddess, or, just this divine sustenance coming through. I'm aware that it's nearly 19 minutes past, and I can see there's talk of Cornish pasties and omelettes and mushrooms and garlic and all sorts of interesting ideas. Oh, and the point about the Bulgarian thing is that, we're living through this time of world crisis in so many ways. And one of the things that I think it's doing for us is it's making us value the small things. Making us value. Stephanie and I risked our lives with our daughter Sophie and her boyfriend Adam to have a meal in a local pub in the garden. And by gosh, we really appreciated it, sitting in the garden in the sunshine, something that we used to do a lot, and of course loved it, but that sort of sense of gratitude and specialness about this meal was fantastic. And I think that's what this time is giving us. One of the things it's giving us is to really appreciate the small things. So let's finish with a cold shower. I'm going to suggest that we've all been sitting talking about food and meals and feasting, and let's just leave the sacred grove and go just up a path where you can start to hear water tumbling down. And if it helps to close your eyes, by all means do so, and just take this path up into the forest until there's a clearing and you see the most beautiful pool of crystal clear water, and there's a waterfall at the end. And if you feel like it, just dive in. You might want to take your clothes off before you dive in, or it doesn't matter, just dive in however you want to dive in. Dive in and just feel this cool water. And if you want to, just swim over to the waterfall. And you'll find there's a ledge at just the right height, so you can stand up and you can just walk gently into the waterfall. So it's like being in a cold shower. And you can feel all this cold water pouring over you, cooling you down and refreshing you, and making your aura really glow and tingle with vitality and with life. And now you might like to just float back, just come back on your back, just float back with this delicious cold water, just working your way back to the shore, sort of swimming back. Coming back, you know you can go back to this cool pool anytime you like. But right now, to finish this session of Tea with a Druid, you're coming back to be with your friends and companions from all over the world. All of us sitting here together. And gradually let go of these images and just become aware of being seated in front of your screen or tablet, fully present here and now. Great. So look, lovely to be with you. It's just so nice. And I look forward to seeing you again next week, and have a wonderful week full of love and gratitude and warmth and coolth as well. Okay, lots and lots of love. Au revoir. Bye.